Welcome to the Smart Nonsense Podcast, where we talk about entrepreneurship, self-development, and challenging norms. Today, it is episode 69, and that could not be a better number because this is a banger. What do we talk about? Today, we are talking about some funky, fresh topics, and our guest is just a cool dude that rolls with it. We're talking about basically his story. So he started out with an artist background, and then he studied politics and philosophy in college, but then he starts to scheme his way from food stamps up to product manager at LinkedIn. He has cool and different opinions from what we normally hear in terms of whether you should work at a big company like a LinkedIn, a Facebook, a Twitter, or whatever it is, or you should work at a startup, because he's done both. It's one of those conversations where we talk about a ton, networking online, how that's totally changed Gen Z, why we're such an awesome new generation. It has everything. And it's not something where you are like struggling to make it through the first half so you get to the juicy second half, because we just go right from the start. I think you're going to want to talk to our guest. You can find him on his website, andrewcuyu.com. He's also on Twitter, at andrewcu. He's a stud, and he has this cool email. It's one of my top 3 emails out there. It's called The Action. Subscribe to that if you want some goodies in your inbox. God damn, I'm excited. This new format really got me juiced up. So if you want, leave a review. I don't even care if you want. Just leave a good review. I'm going to force you to do it because that is important. That's how we get cool guests like Andrew on the pod. So do that right now, and then just sit back and enjoy the next hour and a half with Andrew Yu. Yeah, so I think what I want to try and do, there's so much to get into, but I want to try and experiment with this new Steph approach. Shout out to her. But kind of me summarizing your life, you fill in the gaps, maybe fill in some interesting details if I'm missing them. Yep. But we can just go from there.
Yo, can we actually even start a bit earlier? Like, let's talk through how this even happened. So yeah. I want to hear your nice. You got the mug. Damn, bro, you got the swag and everything. Yeah,
you see that shit?
No, this is for real. All right.
I'm not fucking around, Andrew. Come on.
Yeah. So you reached out to me because you talked to Robbie, right? So could you give me? Yeah, let's hear that story. What was that like?
Well, all right. So I don't know how. Okay, Avtar Suratan. He kind of started my whole venture into Twitter. He was in one of David Perel's Reddit passage groups, and I think. You took it, right? Were you in their cohort?
I did. That show was fire. The one the past summer, like basically 2 months ago, like 3 months ago.
Okay, so I think, is that how you kind of connected with them? Like Brandon and
Yep.
I guess Robbie and the whole crew.
Yeah.
Right. So I kind of just started like following people from Rite of Passage, connected with Brandon, had him on the show. Then he was like, yeah, talk to Robbie. And I'm like, all right. Nice. I start riffing with Robbie. And then next thing you know, I'm like, Robbie, who's the coolest person? Like, if you could pick anyone to talk to, without hesitating, he was like, Andrew Yu. I'm like,
what?
All right, boys, coming on the podcast. So,
all right, I appreciate that. Shout out Robbie. I appreciate you, man. By the way, Robbie's doing, man. So, just for some context, we did WAP, right? Rite of Passage. That WAP. And we after that set up like a group where we meet up. Kind of happen organically, like every week, just to like check in on progress and shit like that, just like small group. And like that dude is a machine, man. He's just executing. Like he has a vision. I mean, his course starts, I think, in 2 days, October 16th. His performative speaking. I mean, dude, I don't have anything to plug, but if I'm going to plug anything, it's like performativespeaking.com, Robbie's course, man. Like that man had a vision, he executed, and the course is starting. So like, super props to him.
Yeah, it's gnarly. Like I was talking to some people and they're like, dude, this guy's first course, he's dropping a 2K product and has like 30 people signed up pretty much already. It's
dope because baller. Like, yeah, I don't know if you've he's like been doing the circuits, right? Like he gave some background on it in Jack Butcher's office hours. Mm-hmm. And it's because, dude, he has over a decade of experience. He has like 150 whatever trials. He has been teaching. Like he was already teaching. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So sticking with the whole like build once, sell twice thing. It's like you can't start any of this stuff unless you have something to like an actual skill, right? And that guy was like, oh yeah, I've been doing this already. So I think that's a big part of why it just came so easily and naturally to him. But yeah, man.
Yeah, that's what I was asking Brandon too, because I mean Brandon's 19, but like
He's crushing it
I'm
too.
like, yo, Brandon, you're crushing it so much. Are you gonna drop a product soon? Like, what's going on? And
Yeah.
he's like, maybe I'll have some like mentorship product because he's working with Jack Butcher and just
Yeah.
he's basically hacked the whole networking
I
scene.
love it so much, dude. I love it. Like just watching people like Brandon. I usually would be like, yo, watching kids like Brandon, but like it's just like a new generation and a new like completely different skill set, and he's just leading the charge, and it's just so dope to watch someone like he gives me hope is basically what I'm saying. Like he makes me hype about, dude, not only Gen Z but Gen A is coming, bro. They're
That's
like
after Gen Z. I didn't even hear that. That's their term.
Yeah. So I've been seeing that here and there. I mean, I don't know if that's going to be what officially it's called, but I've been seeing it like reference because they're like what 11, 12 right now, right? I think they're like 8 to like 11, but that's going to come soon, man. And like to them, people like Brandon are going to be the baseline, and it's like, yo, this is like the way to do it. So props to Brandon, props to Robbie. Yo, do you have an air horn? You don't have any of that shit?
Actually, Zencaster has it. We could,
yo, hold up.
You won't hear it though. I don't think you're going to hear it. I got like, fuck, I don't have the air. I don't know if you could hear that. I just put a little ballpark.
I thought this was legit, man. No air
horn? Nah, dude. That's next year. Just one step at a time, but no, it's crazy. I mean, I'm excited. I want to see. I know you. I'm not a product manager, but I know that's going to be one of your Rome courses someday in the future.
Sure.
We'll see what happens there. But if we go back, all right. So can we hop into the nutshell now? See if we can crack this code on your life, just so people get properly filled in.
Yeah.
All right. Let me do the summary. You gave me this dope synopsis, which I appreciate this morning. And dude, if you saw me this morning, I've been taking a lot of tubs lately. I don't know why, but
what's tubs?
What is like that? A bath.
Oh, word, bro. That's dope. Actually, that's some real.
Yeah,
that's like some.
I don't know why, but we just have
You have a dope tub.
Yeah. We just moved in a couple days ago. I'm in Chicago, and we got like a decent little renovated like loft studio. I don't know what you call it, but it's got a dope tub. Yeah. Let's say that. And so I was just in the tub, and like it kind of slowly drains. So I was just in there for like an hour or so, just like scrolling through your Twitter, reading all your stuff, like listening to all your speeches. Like, dude, it was like psychopath shit. But and then like the tub, like it's only draining because there's enough water pressure, and it gets to a point like 1 inch of water where it just doesn't drain anymore. Yeah. So I was just like 30 minutes in this like 1 inch of water, and it was just really fucking weird.
Ooh,
so I'm glad whoever's envisioning this right now. I hope that picture is clear.
Shout out the naked Dylan in the tub scrolling through Twitter visual. No, that's actually kind of a cool, like it is like a very good representation of like, oh, like I spent time reading your shit. So I appreciate that.
My skin was all wilted and shit. So here's what I know, or at least I think I know. Yeah. So you were born here. Was it DC where you were born?
Dude, I was actually born in Tennessee. So like that's even.
Fuck?
I know, dude.
All right. I know. God damn, your roots are crazy. All right, so Tennessee. Then at some point you move over to Hong Kong, the British speaking part.
Yep.
I don't know like how gnarly their accent is.
It was pretty gnarly. Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully you have a little bit in there. It doesn't sound like it too much, but your parents, they're Korean because they speak Korean, I assume.
Yep.
And you kind of grew up speaking both, doing both. They're artists, so you got that creative side, which is sick. Like talk about talent stack, just funky different areas. Yeah. And then you grew up there. You decide to go to college at UVA, so you come over here. You're studying politics, or actually more so philosophy and politics.
Both, yeah.
Funky little stuff. You got a comic strip, which was hilarious.
Oh, word. Oh, shit. Okay. Dude, you saw that? Okay.
I peeped it all. Dude, I'm telling you, like 2 hours maybe in this tub.
Word.
And I actually listened to a podcast. I think it was you, but like you were talking about music and DJing, and I know you do that, but like there weren't any, like you didn't get beyond that. So I'm like, is this actually Andrew, or am I listening to just some other dude named Andrew Yu riffing about music and getting high, or like tripping acid or something? And
That sounds like
far off
me,
lands.
but I don't remember doing a podcast on
It was
that.
like 2018, and it was some dude you talked to like 8 years prior.
Whoa.
I don't know. What was the? I have to pull it up, but
yeah, that's
who
interesting.
knows? Maybe it was you, maybe it was some other dude, but his voice was cool, so I listened to it for a bit.
Dope. Also, there are a lot of Andrew Yus, man. It's a shame, but it is. It is.
I was
what
pissed.
It is.
I'm like, have you been on other podcasts? Because I really wanted to listen to some, but I couldn't.
I have not. I mean, I'm like actually trying to think right now. I have not been on. I've been on one or maybe two, but I like haven't listened to it. You know. Okay, well, so you go through that. That does sound like me, though.
All right, so, yeah, maybe I'll have to listen back and give you some details. But basically, you graduate and you didn't you weren't a big, or you weren't really a coder at that point. Like you didn't have much text experience.
Not a single line of code.
And that's gnarly to me. Kind of like Steph, like she just learned it just taking boot camps basically, or just online courses. I want to get into that at some point, but then you get in the kind of the startup sphere. There's like the sales startup company, the educational tech, and you end up at LinkedIn doing product management there for at least a couple of years, and now you're kind of on a sabbatical for a bit. I don't really know what's going on, but does that bring us up to date? Like, where am I going wrong here?
That's pretty accurate, man. That's pretty solid. Yeah, good work on the research.
Yeah, I always try and understand people from the ground up, and I think I got a decent sense. But like, here's what's the coolest part to me, because few people are kind of like they navigate both the left and the right side of the brain so well. And I think that's like why you see on Twitter, or like I love Wait But Why, Tim Urban's content, like just kind of taking these difficult subjects, distilling them into images and just funny stuff. It seems like that's your angle. Did that started with your parents just growing up? They were artistic like that? Like where'd that whole side of you really come?
Yeah, man. Love it. Love the question. Love the research. I appreciate it. Yeah. So let's start from there. So growing up with my dad was a musician, and then my mom's a painter. So like that was just a given. And I think a lot of people, like your listeners or just anyone, can kind of relate to this, where whatever your parents do or whatever is around you, like in your family, it's kind of a given for you, right? So like I envy people who have engineer parents, right? I like envy when I see people who have like entrepreneur parents, right? But then they also see me and they're like, oh, that's cool that you have like artist parents, right? So growing up with whatever influence you have makes a huge impact for sure, right? And like that's like your family. But then there's also like, I put in the Hong Kong piece because, dude, growing up internationally, and then especially like, dude, I saw Hong Kong get transferred over to China. Like I was there, and that's like after 99 years. I don't know if you know any of the history, but it's like they were a colony. After 99 years, they give it back to China. Like that shit just doesn't really happen in general. And so to be like living there and then seeing this place that you live be part of two worlds, that has like a similar kind of influence as like, you know, growing up with parents or like family members who do a certain craft. That's just like you know, that's just like who you are.
What is that actually like? Like what happens when that transition occurs? Like is society just like, this is the language now? Or I guess there's still like,
there's
what culture, what happens?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. Well, first, so I don't know if you are like on top of the news, like international news, but if you're aware of what's going on in Hong Kong right now, so it's 2020, right? And they got transferred over in 97. What's happening right now is like a direct result of the handover. And what's happening right now is like they're taking away liberties. They're like, you know, I mean, dude, I don't want to go into politics on this front, but like basically it's like different laws get, you know, implemented. There's like protests and stuff like that, right? But culturally speaking, it's like a flag change, dude. Like you go from having a flag that has the Union Jack, like the British Union Jack on it, right? So like if you look at Australia, they have the Union Jack, they're like crossing the X and whatever, you know, top left corner, right?
Yeah.
So that flag goes away, and then you have this new flag. I think the coins changed, bro, you know, like just stuff like that. And you just see like a bunch of signs change, and they definitely led up to it. So I was a kid at the time, and they were like, yo, by the way, in a couple of years, like it's not going to be Britain anymore. It's going to be China. And so you're just like, what? Yeah, you're just like, And yeah, as I mentioned, like my family's Korean, so we spoke Korean at home, and like everybody in Hong Kong is international. Like, dude, like everybody is everything, right? And so I think having whatever your upbringing is like so ingrained in you, and like that's just like the location and the culture. But then, I mean, your original question was about the art stuff, right? Similarly, right? It's like you are born into a world where it's like, oh, you're like my parents are artists, and so that's just like who I am as well, right? So that's where that came from. Yeah, I'll just pause there because there's like so much more to.
Well,
yeah,
but some buddies and I, we went to China, but just we didn't get down to like Hong Kong. We just hit Beijing and Shanghai, and everyone was like, "Oh, you got to check out Hong Kong," and so we kind of missed it. I mean, I was born in 1997, so I kind of
dope.
I didn't really get that whole
good year
pre side of having British. I guess colonizers.
So that's crazy, right? Like think about that. Like you were born into a world where that wasn't even a thing. It's like it's already China,
right?
Whereas like for all the kids and the adults and everybody who was there at that time, it was just like they knew it was going to happen. And then there's this huge, it's like a seismic event. It's like it's like a once in a century event, right? And it's like just to be there when something like that happens has like a pretty significant impact on you because then you start realizing I was like, oh, this stuff is artificial, right? If you can just exchange land in countries like that, then it's clear that all this stuff was like made by humans, like how we define boundaries and like what languages we choose, like
and
it
then
just
up comes the political aspirations. Is that where that came from? Was just like seeing it firsthand, or where did that whole side of you come from?
I think that's part of it. So I went to college in UVA, and I studied politics and philosophy there. The actual major is called political social thought, but it's easier to say philosophy. But then I also had like a government degree. So I think that comes from like you're around international stuff growing up, and you're like around, like I was just very drawn to international relations, right? So like just being drawn to like how geopolitical decisions are made and how countries interact with each other. It's all like political at the end of the day, right? I mean, there's like econ, but I saw it from the lens of like there are like these political actors, like there's like leaders of countries and leaders of departments within those countries, and they're the ones who are making the world kind of move, right? And then I moved to DC, like that's where I spent high school, and so that's like fucking DC. It's like Washington DC, dude, and it's like everybody works in government, everybody works in politics. So it just seemed like the natural progression from there.
I've been just obsessed with philosophy in general, partly because David Perel preaches it, and then I hear I don't know if you know like Owania Group, Nick Kokonis. We did a podcast about him. He's an interesting guy, but like a lot of these people are just preaching philosophies. So I'm like, oh God, I kind of want to get into it, and like I'm starting to read some Nietzsche stuff. Like my buddy's into it. He's a like a quant trader sort of guy, so he's into all this decision making stuff. But it's it gives you an interesting perspective. I don't know how relevant it is to your day to day,
right?
Now, but does it impact your thinking, like when you're say leading a group of engineers, or even like does it consciously impact what you do with your decisions?
Dude, that's a great question. So I think the best way to answer that is to talk about the transition into tech from that. So I'll just start there. So like I'm in college, I'm like studying philosophy and reading tons of amazing stuff. And of course philosophy is broad, right? So like, let's actually narrow it down. There's like, I think there's like four main branches. There's, it's like metaphysics, which is like, what is it like to be, like to be just like the state of being or whatever. And there's like epistemology, which is like philosophy of knowledge. Like, what does it mean to know? And then there's like, it keeps breaking down like that. But for me personally, I was focused on like the philosophy of like political philosophy, which is like, hey, how do people self-organize? What motivates people, right? Like, what are people's beliefs and morals? Like a lot of Kant, a lot of Rousseau, a lot of John Locke, like those are political philosophers. Um, and so that's the kind of stuff I was interested in. And I was like, oh, I want to be a politician someday, right? I was like, I'm going to work in politics someday. And then, dude, like literally as soon as I graduated, I think it was like a week and a half after it, I was like, man, this ain't it. Like this.
Wait, why?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
like had one job or what happened?
No, I'll tell you. So it's basically like, so underlying all of that, and this is what philosophy is really good for. It's like, it gets you down to principles, which is really interesting because right now, like first principle thinking is really hot because of like Elon Musk, and he comes from it from a science background. But as I was getting popular, I was like, oh wait, like that actually applies so much to philosophy because everything about philosophy is principles. So in this situation, I was like, wait, what's the real principle underlying all this? Like, why do I actually even want to do philosophy? Like, why do I even want to go into politics, right? And the underlying principle under all that is like, I care about driving impact in the world. And this is like, I'm fresh out of college at this moment. And I mean, everybody wants to drive impact. Who doesn't, right? Like, who doesn't want to create impact in the world? But I thought the only way to do that at the time was through this mechanism of politics and like through this mechanism of influencing on a people-to-people basis. Dude, this was during the Obama years. It was so dope. It was so hype. That was a huge influence too. Like that's when I went to college. It was like 2008, 2007 to 11. Yeah, it's a while ago. But like that shit was popping. Like Obama was just, crushing it. He was like, yes, we can, all that shit. And you're like, oh my God, like this is the way to like create change and impact in the world. Right. And then, like upon graduation, it obviously wasn't like within a day or two. It was just more like building up to it. It's like, oh, there's so many other ways to create impact. And at this time, like iPhone was getting big, like tech was just starting to blow up a little bit more. And you could see the direct impact of tech in people's lives. Like you could literally touch it. Like you can literally see value in products immediately, and it's changing their lives immediately. And so I gravitated towards tech at that time, and I was like, oh shit, I got to move out to San Francisco somehow.
But you decided to move out to San Francisco before you took any courses or anything. You were just like, oh, this fucking iPhone's kind of cool. Yeah. This is probably going to be big. Let me get into this whole sphere.
Yeah, basically, dude. So I'll give you like a vivid picture. I graduated college. I was working for some government contractor, hated it. I was like sitting in my cubicle, like it was just gray. Like there's like walls are scratchy, it's like it's like been used before, and it's just like there's the lunchroom stank, right? Like this place sucked, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm reading blogs and I'm like reading articles, and I came across Paul Graham's blog, and he's like the GOAT for like startup stuff, right? He still is, which is so dope. But I was reading some of his stuff, and I was like reading some of the articles around like creating impact through tech, and then I saw this one article that's about product managers specifically, and it's specifically about like, oh, there's an interdisciplinary role where you get to interact with design, you get to interact with business, you get to interact with engineering, and build stuff that actually drives value and impact, and not do things like, you work for a political campaign and then like they get elected and you have to wait like 4 years and then they like maybe pass a law, right? So I read that and I was like, oh shit, like San Francisco is where it's at. You can kind of tell, like you can kind of tell what's getting hot, right? And you can kind of tell what's hype and what's not. And clearly this was like 2011, 2012. It was like, oh, the tech scene is booming. I got to get out there.
That's so I think that just like seeing the wave and then like, fuck it, I'm just going to go ride it. I don't know if I have the skills yet, but I'll fucking body surf if I have to and then find a surfboard later.
Yeah.
I don't know if that analogy makes sense, but
it's good.
Like, you basically did that.
Yeah, basically.
And so what would you end up taking to like bring yourself up to speed for tech knowledge?
For sure. So the way I got out there first to San Francisco was I got a job through AmeriCorps. So it was like so it's like not just big jump, right? It's like, what's the first kind of step I could take? And there's this AmeriCorps is basically Teach for America, but for nonprofits. So basically they like sign you up for, they like put you on a nonprofit to help them out for like a year. And so that was my ticket out to San Francisco. So that's number one. Like, it's steps, right? So it's like, okay, I have this vision now, right? Um, I want to become a product manager at a big tech company. Like that was my vision, right? We could talk a little bit more about like how exactly I got there, because I gave you some like generic stuff, but it's like, hey, that's my vision. How do I do that? Well, first I got to get out to San Francisco. It's like, how do I do that? All right, I got to get a job out there. It's not going to be tech. Okay, so what can I do? So then there was this way to get there that was okay for people like me, like liberal arts majors, and it was through AmeriCorps, which is like it's basically, yeah, like I mentioned, it's like nonprofit stuff, right? So I got a gig through that, and that was the first step. Just broke, just we were like, dude, through this program, you could get food stamps because we're getting paid so little. And so it was like the most broke I've ever been, but also the most fun I've ever had, because they like put us into groups of like 30. Like, so imagine like 30 fresh out of college kids. We're all broke, but we just moved to San Francisco, and like, we're like using these food stamps to buy ingredients and then like cook big meals for each other. It's like, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's a good time. I don't wish it on anyone, but it was a good time. So that was like the first step. And then, dude, for like the next 2-3 years, it was painful, man. It's painful to try to figure out how to code. There weren't boot camps at the time, actually. There were like maybe one or two. So I was just like trying to learn through Code Academy, like there are all these like websites for free coding you can learn. But then I had to get my foot in the door somehow into startups. So I first joined as like an account manager at this like ad tech company. And that's like just like pure relationships, right? It's not pure. I mean, there's like a lot of really key skills that come with being like a good account manager like later in your career. But this is like entry level. And then from there, dude, I was like learning to code on my own. I was just like, dude, it sucked, man. It was awful. Like just going to meetups, like trying to just like being super, let's see, what's the right word here? I was being thirsty, basically, right?
Yeah.
I was like so thirsty, dude. I was like talking to as many engineers as possible. I was like, oh my God, like, what do you do? Oh, that's so cool. Like, it was all genuine, right? Like, I was like, because at the time, the only way to become a product manager was like, you had to at least have some technical chops and like coding chops. So I do all of that shit. I'm having a blast, by the way, like throughout this whole time. Like, San Francisco is fun as fuck for like a new grad. And then this is where one part of luck does come in. So through all that networking and talking to people and stuff like that, like, people remember you, and like they have your email, and like this is what I think is like the key to networking is like, it's not immediate. Like, it's never immediate. If it is, that's great. But it's always like, oh yeah, we talked like a year ago. Or it's like, oh yeah, we had that conversation like a quarter ago, or 5 years ago. Right. And so I got an email one day, and this guy's like, hey, we're like trying to start a company. We remember that you really liked to learn a code. We need someone just like on the ground who will kind of like do everything, right? But in exchange, we'll teach you to code. I was like, what? Hey, dude, you guys will like teach me to fucking code right now? Like, that'd be dope. Yeah, so like it was kind of a win-win, right? Like for me, I'm like this young kid who's like super hype and like really interested in learning to code because I like had this vision. And for them, they're like, well, obviously like they don't need to pay me like market rate, but then they're also like, yo, we get to teach you to code on the job. We'll still pay you, obviously. And we'll also like, you'll also see what it's like to join a startup super early. So yeah, that was like, because like life is planning, life is strategy, and then life is a lot of luck. Like that part was luck for sure. But then there's also like, you make your own luck if fortune favors the bold kind of shit, right?
Yeah, you're going around thirsting for who knows how many months. I mean, that's so typically with girls, they don't say that's the best approach is just like thirst. But I guess in the tech space, you
dude, they love it. It's like, it was just like reaching out to as many engineers, going to these like meetups, and then meeting engineers, and then like pinging them constantly, about questions. I'm just like, oh, what is an API? It's like, what is the difference between back end and front end? Just like shit like that. And then it paid off, at the end of the day.
What I love is just like this approach of one, I don't think enough people ask or are lucky enough to have the philosophy background to really ask the why questions. Like, why are you doing anything? Which is why I loved, I think you shared, I forgot who made it, but was it like the vector theory of impact or whatever? Like,
Yeah.
you have to have a direction.
Yeah.
Sam Altman. Oh, okay. Perfect. Sam Altman. So like you kind of wanted to figure out the direction before you started crushing it in whatever you did.
Yeah.
Going full bore.
Yeah.
And most people don't ask that question. They just kind of shoot off in whatever direction their parents push them or whatever that is. But you really questioned it. And then you're just like, fuck it. I'm a scrap for a little bit and just kind of make it work. I basically did the same thing. Like, I don't know, this, people have heard this before, but like I worked for a dating company for like several years. I'm kind of still affiliated with it, but like literally just like, basically, if you want to say it the harsh way that scares people, it was like literally a pickup artist. And so people were like, what in the fuck is this? This kid goes to an Ivy League school and then works for this pickup. I just thought it was fucking cool. And so I went to New York, just like sleeping on the floor, just basically food stamp life. But it's so cool because now you find a way to make it work, and then you just kind of level up.
Dude, that's hilarious. Dude, I want to hear about this. So you work for a pickup artist company. Like, was it a product? Was it a service? How'd it work?
It's a dude. He has a YouTube channel with a couple 100,000 subscribers, and he'll just like kind of reminds me of Jack Butcher stuff, but like he just created a program, sold like several $1 million worth, and like continues to sell well. Yeah, dude, it's fucking wild in that world. But like now I'm like, I don't even need Jack's course because I just did like several years working for this guy. I know how to take your knowledge, whether it's dating knowledge or tech knowledge, rum knowledge, whatever, and you like package it up and sell it. So it's just cool shit. Like, you should
still check it out. You should still check his course out regardless, because it's just dope. You know, like the content itself is like is cool because it has really cool designs too. But yeah,
while we're just on that tangent, did you how many courses have you taken of like Twitter people? Like Jack Butcher, you took build one, sell twice. Did you take the
design one?
The design, yeah.
I did, yeah. I mean, dude, it's hard to. Well, I mean, as you probably know, it's like, what does it mean to take a course, right? And like, dude, I've talked to tons of course creators and like successful course creators who like are making bank off their courses about this stuff, and they're like, you could have people actually buy your course, like pay their money, and dude, a lot of them don't even fucking open the course. Okay, that's number one, right? Like, let's use the funnel, right? B, the people who do take the course, like most of them don't finish it. This is just like well known in e-learning, totally, right? Like even at LinkedIn, like LinkedIn Learning, like these are just stats too, like Coursera, all these courses, right? So okay, all the people who never even opened it, that's one thing. And then from there, it's like the people who did open it, they barely go through it, right? And then you have like the small few who actually finish it. That's great. But then, bro, after that, it's like even smaller amount actually apply the practices. And so, like, it's a good question. It's like, how many courses have you taken? I've taken Jax. I've taken, like, WAP was really dope, Rite of Passage. I'm in a couple other ones right now that are like more product management specific. But did I apply Jack's philosophy? Nah, man. Like, I'm not doing it a service, you know? Whereas you look at someone like Robbie, like that guy, because it's all in there. Like, it's all good, like really good content, really actionable content. But people like me will go through it and like, we won't do anything about it. Right. And then you'll have people like Robbie who will like go through it and then immediately take action. And then, you know, there's different reasons for it. For me, it's like, I just like, I have ideas for what I want to do, but I also have some other, I mean, these are excuses, but yeah, there's some other things going on right now. Yeah.
Robbie, because I asked Robbie, I'm like, yo, Robbie, what should I ask Andrew when I talk to him? And he's like, one, ask his process, like his creative process, which we can get into. But the second one is like, why aren't you going all in with these cool creative design? Just
love it. I
this
love
world.
It. Yeah.
He doesn't know because it's like there's so much talent there, but you're kind of keeping it. I don't know.
Love it. I love Robbie, man.
On the surface.
Yeah.
Well, what is the reason? Are you just, you kind of said some excuses there, but what's going through your head?
Yeah, I can kind of give you an update actually. So, I mean, this is fresh off the press actually. So this is my break, right? So like I purposely, like I left LinkedIn, left on great terms. Like I love all these people. So it was like it was like a good departure, right? So that's number one. It wasn't like, oh, fuck this place. It was like, I was like, oh, I need to take a break. Like I want to actually just delve deep into interest and stuff like that. And so one part of it was that like I purposely didn't want to have deliverables. Because dude, like product management is literally like deliverables, you know, ETAs, like
well, can you break
Yep.
this down more so? Because I read up a little bit, but like I'm so out of Silicon Valley world.
Yeah, yeah.
What is okay? Sorry to cut you off because you were kind of explaining it, but product manager, like you have a team of engineers, you got to create a product that accomplishes some goal. Like, what is it actually? I guess.
Yo, for sure, for sure. Especially, I mean, it's good that we're like taking a step back here because, as you mentioned, like for people who are not in Silicon Valley, this is all just like, you know, like jargon, right? So it's pretty straightforward. It's basically like a product manager is responsible for making sure the right thing gets built and shipped. So it's like, oh, they're not actually coding, right? It's like, no, they're not. It's like, oh, they're not actually designing, right? It's like, no, they're not. They're not actually like developing the business plans. No, they're not. But as I mentioned, they are responsible for making sure the thing goes out, and it's like the right thing that goes out. So I'll just give you, I'll give you a concrete example. So I'm working on a product at LinkedIn. Let's say the product is a like invitations product. It's like the ability to like reach out to someone and add like a custom invitation to the note. So like that's an actual product that we shipped, right? And the pieces involved are like, okay, the designer needs to like design what that looks like. The engineers need to actually build the thing and like, you know, define how they're going to build it. And then the business is about like, okay, how much is this going to drive up metrics? And then like, what does that mean for our overall business? If you send invitations with a custom note, does that mean that more people are likely to accept it? Does that mean that there's going to be more conversations? Does that mean there's going to be, you know, et cetera, right? And then for the product manager, it's our job to basically like make sure all of that works together. So that's the best way to put it. Yeah.
You're just when there's someone to fire for the product fucking up, you're that person.
Yeah, basically.
So it's basically all on your shoulders, and then you just make sure everyone executes properly.
Yeah. But the cool thing about it is like if you get some good wins, you know, it's like you get to celebrate, which is great.
Yeah.
I think the history of product management is like really interesting where, if I'm not mistaken, like the role literally came up because you had like engineering, you had like design, you had business, you had like, you know, like your execs. And then there was just this tension. There's always like a tension in between. It's like the execs want something built, and then the engineers will be like, no, we can't do that. Right. And then like they don't know how to speak in engineering terms because they don't have like technical background. And then like the design people will talk to the like business people or something, right? Like there are all these intersections. So they like had to create a role that would fill the in-betweens. So yeah, that's what a product manager does. So I mean, like straight up, we'll be the first to go when there's, you know, when there's like if there's a startup, they're the last people to get hired, right? Like,
yeah.
So, and like, they're the first people to go if the company needs to downsize. We're fully aware of all that stuff, but we love this role because we get to sit in the middle and like talk to all those parties.
Is the traditional trajectory, so say you come in and you want to be an engineer, is the next step, I don't know if it's linear, but is the next step usually going to go to product manager, or do you go somewhere else?
Yeah.
Okay. So where do you go?
So if you're an engineer, there is like a relatively laid out path, which is like you're an engineer, you become like a senior engineer, and then you become an engineering manager, which means like you are managing a team of engineers. But you're also like, you know, you could still be coding on the side. So that's usually what happens. So for product managers, dude, like, okay, there's no product management major in colleges, right? Yeah. I think now there's like one or two, dude. I think it's like coming up. But like, there's no major for product management. There's also no set way of getting in. And there's like, everybody has their own story. Like if you talk to other product managers, they'll all have like a different story of like how they got there. And it's only now starting to become more of a path. And so like now the funnel is actually like a lot of MBAs will like do business school and go to product management. Is really interesting. But before then, it used to be like you would be working in a startup and you're like an engineer, or like you're a designer, or you're like a biz ops guy, right? And then like the company grows and they're like, yo, we need somebody to like sit in the middle to like, do the stuff that a product manager does. You, like, why don't you do it? And then like the engineer becomes a product manager, or like, hey, why don't you do it? And then the designer becomes a product manager. Like that's usually how it would happen. But now it's very much set. Like I said, the MBA thing, there's actually a lot of programs now within companies like Google or LinkedIn or Facebook where immediate graduates from college come in as like a junior product manager. And then now there's like this set trajectory. So
the difference between a product manager versus like an engineering manager, I forget the exact term you used, but like, what is the difference there? Like, are they still under the product manager in the hierarchy?
Gotcha.
I'm trying to visualize.
Yeah. No, dude, totally. This is actually great, man. I love this because like, I love that we get to explain it because it's such jargon in Silicon Valley, right?
I've just been trying. I was riffing with some buddies earlier on the podcast, like a while back, but like project manager, product manager, like there are all these terms.
Dude, so many
more. I'm like lost in the sauce, but I appreciate you explaining this.
Yeah, and dude, we could talk about that when we talk about like corporate life, right? Because that's like another theme. Yeah. Okay. So here's the sitch. Here's the sitch. So product manager, the other tagline is all the responsibility without the authority. All right. So like, let that sit for a second. What that means is we don't like nobody direct reports to us, right? Like nobody is like, we're not anyone's direct manager. So that's also like another term, right? There's like direct reports, which is like you're responsible for their careers and like you have one-on-ones with them. And then you have like actual managers. Dude, even though it's the same word, it's just not, You have actual managers like an engineering manager where like they have a team that they're like responsible for growing. Mm-hmm. And so like, like this is the more traditional term of manager, which is like, like, oh, my manager, my boss, like they're a boss basically. But dude, product managers, they have all the responsibility, but they don't have that authority. And so like one of the most core skills is influence. So you have to be good with people. So you got to be able to like talk. Yeah.
That's one of your 3 core facets of life is the people aspects. So that's why you're crushing it.
Bro. Exactly,
so the people listen, even though you don't have the technical, like you don't have the authority per se, you kind of build up the influence and that is your authority.
Yeah. Because the influence is like, and when we say authority, we're talking like a corporate environment, right? Authority meaning like you are, dude, this is a good conversation, man. I like this because these words are just words that we take for granted. But when you start unpacking them, and this is what philosophy is good for, dude, is like you just keep unpacking. You keep breaking it down. You're like, all right, authority meaning what? Authority usually means that there's a kind of like repercussion, right? Mm-hmm. So like a manager with authority has the ability to give performance reviews, for example. And they can say, like, oh, this person's not performing. And so like they need to get fired, for example, right? I can't do that because I don't have the authority. So that's like a good distinction. But what I do need to leverage are our skills to like influence a project moving forward, like aligning people together, making sure the thing just runs smoothly. That's like a big part of the job.
I kind of had a similar dynamic. So I came in to this pickup dating company and I'm pretty good with operations. Sorry to make this self-centered here, but like I'm pretty good with the operations, but like I'm younger. Like I was at the time like maybe 20. I don't even think I was 21 yet. But like it was clear I had my shit together and they're just a bunch of fuckboys running around. And so it's like, how do I corral them without any authority? They're like, Dylan, how many girls have you fucked? And I'm like, I don't know, probably a 10th of what you have. Sorry to make this vulgar for the people listening.
Right. I mean,
but basically, like that's the respect. Yeah, that's like the alpha male is like, oh, who's slept with the most girls? Just weird shit like that.
Right.
But like, how do I get them to buy into my systems for like making a good business? Yeah. And you really have to just learn how to, I don't know, persuade people. And so it sounds like you were doing the same thing.
Yeah. Like another term that's thrown around a lot in the PM space, but also like corporate space is herding cats. I don't know if you've heard that.
Yeah.
You once, yeah. Okay, word. So you were hurting fuckboys. You know, you're like, all these fuckboys are like, oh, who's that one dude? There's all these funny comedians. Trevor, the guy who's like,
Trevor Wallace.
Trevor Wallace, dude.
Yeah.
He does all the like fuckboy shit. He's like, it's like, you know, it's like you're like hurting fuckboys, dude. Like,
literally,
yeah, you're not their boss, but you got to make them do shit. Like, and I'm not saying that's not even close to product man. I just want to say, like, because like I want the listeners to be clear. Like, that's just want to make that really clear. That's all that is. But that's funny that your imagery was that. Yeah.
So you found a way for them to kind of like you align them in a way that kind of it's win-win for everyone. And like, I don't know if you have many disputes with some of the engineers or people that are.
Yeah, actually, dude.
You.
So this is where the dope part comes in for me personally. So, okay. So when I was doing like the politics shit and I graduated, I mentioned like one part of it was like, oh yeah, tech is booming. But dude, one key part of it for me personally was like, I love analytical skills and I love data. And I know because I relied so much on like people skills when I was like in college, I knew my own bullshit, right? Like if you're a bullshitter, you know your own bullshit. And like, I'm not saying I was a bullshitter, but like I knew that a lot of politics, a lot of like people skills, a lot of like just, you know, like being able to like talk to people and shit, you know, all that. It's like a lot of it's bullshit, right? I'm speaking for myself. And so like, that's also what drew me to tech was like, there's no bullshit. There's still bullshit, but like when you deal with numbers and data was like men lie, when men lie, women lie, numbers don't, right? It's really hard to dispute numbers and data. Like, yeah, you can manipulate data. Sure. That's like a whole different conversation. But what happens in a product management space when you're working in these like high performance environments and you have to persuade people and influence them, you use data. Like you talk about like the actual numbers and you talk about like actual like rational thinking. And that's what I love about it. It's not like persuasion through like, oh, yo, hey bro, like, why don't you like just work on this? It's not that. It's like, hey, let's look at the data. Let's sit down. How long is this going to take to build if we do it with your approach? And then like, let's look at this other approach and like genuinely looking at it from like a rational angle. And like, dude, I love that so much because as I mentioned, I know what it's like when it's not that and it's like bullshit, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's just black and white. Like this, I don't know if you have one goal and I don't know exactly what it was like within LinkedIn, but I remember hearing with Facebook, it's like, this is the one metric we're going for, what growth or users. I forget the metric that they used, but like, is this getting us towards that goal? And it kind of helps to just, hey, these are the numbers. Like, is this going to improve them?
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So that was
that, North. Yeah.
Oh, North Star David Perel's podcast right there.
North. We call that like North Star metric. Like, what is the one metric that we should be tracking that captures the value that we're delivering to the user, like to the customer? So like, I think on Facebook, it's like daily active users. I think for Twitter, it all ends up being daily active users. But like for whatever product, like this microphone, right? Like, what is the like core metric when we ship this product? And dude, this is a fun exercise. Like for any product, you can do this. It's like just a fun exercise. You have to think about who's using it. Like, who are the types of users who are using this mic? There's like musicians, there's podcasters, whatever. Okay. What do they care about? Do they care about what it looks like? Yeah, they do. But what's more important is that it captures your voice accurately, right? So like probably the North Star metric for that is like audio fidelity, right? And so like that's what product management's about.
That's why I loved, and I'm just super in this how to ask good questions. Not that I'm doing a pretty poor job, but like asking good questions and like getting to the root question. What is it called? It's called Eigen question.
Yeah.
Which question, I know you said like, dude, just call this the super question or whatever. So dumb people like me could say it more easily. But
yeah,
like getting to the root question, like what do these people really want? And then like you can answer it properly when you have the right question to work with.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Like, is that, I'm trying to think of like the core skills or kind of like, I guess, your questioning ability, but like going into a product manager, like what differentiates one that's decent versus like a great product manager?
Yeah, man. Great question. Great question, dude. So there's tons of pieces written about this. There's like what's cool about Silicon Valley is like there are certain articles that are like legendary now, right?
Yeah.
Like the Paul Graham shit that I talked about, like they're like legendary and have influenced people who are like me, who are now many years into the game, right? So there's this one called Good Product Manager, Bad Product Manager. You could Google it; it'll be the first result. I think it's like, dude, I think it's like 15 years old now. I don't even know, man.
Shit. Like OG product
Like
managers.
OG shit, you know. Dude, I've like met some product managers who were doing product management before the internet, they said. And because like there was like some version of it with like yeah. Anyways, it's interesting. So I say that to say that there's like all this stuff written about it, right? And there's no right or wrong. But that thing is out there, so definitely check it out. But I'll give you my take. I think the best product managers are the ones who, dude, it really comes down to one word. It's value. Like that's why I love Jack Butcher's shit, because it's like I think anyone who like focuses on the word value, I fuck with, like, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day. Is like, I mean, dude, this actually works really well with a lot of the philosophy stuff too. Like, if you dig into this is more like econ philosophy, but like Adam Smith and like just like Wealth of Nations kind of stuff. Is it Wealth of Nations? Anyway, he talks a lot about like value, and it's like, what does value actually mean? Like, what does it mean? Like, what is, like, we see the word all the time, but what it, like, at the end of the day, what it really means, it's like you're getting something that's beneficial and like makes your life better, right? Something like that. And so a really good product manager knows how to define value and like what it means for the end user to like receive value, and like are they actually using this product, and is it making their lives better? Or actually, to be more precise, it's like, are they actually using this product, and are they getting what they want? Because maybe sometimes it's not better, right? As we all know. But value is like the thing that they're looking for. Do they get it? Something like that. So anyway, like a good product manager is able to identify that, and then they're also able to then define what it means to measure that value. And then after they do that, dude, they can like, they're really good at like rallying people around that. Then they're really good at making sure that shit happens so that you deliver that value, right? So like that's, I think to me, that's the key. That's the key.
This is one cool to me. Like I like I like having that North Star now. Is just like your North Star is value. That's your metric, or like when you turn that into a metric, I guess. But identifying it, figuring out how to measure it, then rallying everyone. In terms of rallying people, like, would you consider yourself a good person? Like, you know, the Steve Jobs kind of. I don't know how. I don't know how. Maybe Jobs, he's more so the fan side. I don't know within the company what rallies.
Like, I'm a hype man. I'm a hype man for sure.
Are you? Like you play the tunes and people just start fucking grooving to whatever.
I'm a hype man. I've been a hype man since I was like a kid. You know what I mean? Like personality type. Like just like you're a kid and you're just like, yo, let's fucking do this thing. You know, like that's my personality. Yeah, and so that definitely translates when you're. I mean, it's bad if you're doing that kind of hype around nothing, like empty hype, right? Which you see a lot of, dude. Like you see a lot of like, not in product management. I'm just saying, like in the world, you see a lot of like, what's the word? It's not just empty. It's like, it's vacuous. Like there's nothing behind it. It's just hype for hype's sake, right? And then you get hype that adds to value. So I mean, Steve Jobs was the ultimate hype dude, right? For sure. Like, because he hyped in a way that was like, he was just dropping bombs constantly. Like all his interviews, he's like, he'll like pause and shit, and like he'll like talk to you in the sense of like, do you even understand? Do you see what's happening? Like this is fucking dope, dude. You know, like the way he talks to the audiences like that is like, bro, like this shit is crazy. You don't even know, you know, like
yeah.
So yeah, for sure. I'm not Steve Jobs by any means, but I love him. I love that guy.
Yeah, I mean, That's something I want to get better at, is just like fucking believing in your shit so much that you're just like, dude,
Yeah.
like wrap your head around this idea. Like I
Yeah.
want to get to that level. But
I mean,
do you
dude,
think
on that point real quick, I'll say
yeah.
I mean, for me at least, the best way to do that is to actually like your shit is so actually dope. Like the value is so real that you can't help but it just
Right. It'd
happens,
be a
right?
disservice not to. Like you're like,
Yeah, dude. Like quality shit, you know what I'm saying? But like if your shit sucks, it'll be difficult to wake up in the morning and hype it, you know?
what's interesting to me, because I just watched recently The Social Dilemma. I don't know if you saw that on
I did, yeah.
Netflix.
Yeah.
Like I feel like a lot of people within these companies see kind of the metrics they're going for, and maybe it has these externalities that are bad, like it's just creating shit stuff. Like at that point, it's hard to kind of feed into the hype if you don't believe the goal of the
Yeah.
company anymore.
Yeah, for sure.
Was that the case? That like, was there an issue like that at LinkedIn, or was there a vibe, or were people just all on board still?
No, dude, like I mean it's a great question because it's like this is where I think there's so many different ways to approach this question because to me what this question really is about is like what are the trade-offs between working at a company versus like working for yourself versus what I think is like the most direct representation of yourself, which is being an artist, right? And when you're an artist, you get to just be like, "Yo, this is my shit. Look at my painting. Like, listen to my song. That's me, right? I obviously believe in it." And then when you're like your own business, same thing, right? Like, I mean, to some degree, a lot of people start businesses that they like barely believe in because they want to make bank, but they still care about it, right? And then you have like a job where, like, yeah, you care about it for sure, but it's also your duty. It's like your responsibility. It's your obligation to give your best effort. And so, like, is it going to be hype every day? No, dude, definitely not. And to expect that, I think, is just like misinformed. So to answer your question directly, it's like, oh yeah, dude, some days you'd be like, oh, this is like not the right metric, but at the same time, it's not that it's not the right metric. It's just more like this project is not the most engaging, but it's like it's your job. Literally, it's your job, right? Um, and then it's really easy to hate on stuff like that. To be like, oh, why are you working at a job? Like, why are you like, clocking in and clocking out and stuff like that, right? I get that. I totally get it. But then there's like the really dope aspect to like being able to work on something big with a lot of people. And dude, when you start working with a lot of people and like you're building something bigger, there's gonna be bullshit. That's just humans, man. That shit's gonna happen. And that's just what it is.
Yeah, that the whole working at a larger company, because I know we were talking originally, and you're like, Dylan, you're shitting on, or not shit. Sorry, I don't want to put words in your mouth. You're
Right.
always the nice guy. I'm the bad guy. But like, you were like, Dylan, you sure you want me? Like, I'm not really the entrepreneur type that you normally go after. I'm
Yeah.
like, no, Andrew. If Robbie said you're the shit, you're the shit. We got to talk.
Right.
But you're a big advocate of these larger companies for that sort of collective beehive. You have your mission, like it's just serving the purpose. I think that's what's cool about any company Elon Musk has. Stripe, I hear it's similar.
Yeah, dude.
Is that like, really the number one for you? Is just that vibe that you can't replace?
Right. I won't say it's my number one. That's part of what this break is about, is for me to like actually just have a breather for a second and do stuff like produce art, which I haven't done in forever, right? And like just write articles, dig into stuff like Rome, right? Like pure curiosity, right? So it's definitely not the number one. And as I said, like that's kind of what I'm thinking through right now. But what I know for sure is that like, I mean, dude, you brought up a good point. Elon Musk, right? You're not going to be making spaceships going to Mars with a like a small internet company. Like you're not going to make it like a company that builds spaceships and have everybody just like everything's always good every day, right? Like once you start going past certain numbers of people, then like you just start getting into like organizational problems, right? And then it's more about like, yo, how do we build teams with this many human beings when we need this many human beings to produce this rocket? And like that becomes like even a cooler problem to me, at least. And it actually becomes a politics problem, dude. Like that's what politics is about. It's like, because a country, dude, a fucking government is the ultimate, quote unquote, I'm not going to say company. It's the ultimate like collection of human beings doing something together, right? This is when it starts getting really interesting and really crazy. You can talk about all sorts of ways. It's like, oh shit, like when is a organization, like what is the size, right? It gets real crazy after that. But yeah.
You have just these entire entities. Jesus, my mind just can't. Andrew, you're expanding it too much. I can't even.
Let's go.
The words aren't coming out right now, but it does seem crazy when you have like so much value within a company and just so much power, and now it's like this is literally like countries within the U.S., Silicon Valley in particular, just all right there.
Yeah, dude.
It's mind blowing shit. And then
I mean, why do you think they're like? Why do you think Congress is like calling these companies to like testify and shit now, right? They're like, yo, what is happening? Like, this is a lot bigger than we thought was going to happen, you know? And yeah, I mean, we're in really interesting times right now for sure. That's all I got to say.
What was cool, I heard, I was listening to a podcast with Cameo's founder, Stephen Galanis or something like that. But he was talking about how at LinkedIn, it's cool because basically you come in, I don't know if it's still the vibe or the policy or whatever you want to call it, but you come in and they're like, hey, we know like you're not going to be where you are right now in 2 years. Like maybe it's rising in the company or maybe it's doing your own thing. Yeah. We're going to support you. Like we want you to crush it at whatever you're doing.
Yeah,
but
dude.
Is that still the vibe or did I kind of get bad information?
Nah, man. Let's talk about it. It's dope. So we call it the next play. That's what we call it internally. Yeah. I actually really like this. So good research, by the way, dude. You're crushing it. You're crushing it,
always
man.
Do. Thanks.
The bathtub thing, I was like, yo, I might just dip. I might just bounce.
You sound like me when I'm talking to girls.
I'm going to piss. No, I'm just kidding. So the next play culture, super dope. Before I go into it, let me just say LinkedIn, one of the dopest cultures I've been a part of, period. Like, I fucking love that company. It's dope. They take such good care of their people and all that, right? So just got to shout out LinkedIn real quick. So next play, specifically what that is the, what's the best way to describe it? It's basically like, yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head. It was like, hey, we know you're going to leave some point, right? Or not leave, but like you're going to move on to your next thing, whether it be internal, whether like you move within the company, whether you leave the company, right? These are all next plays. And the term actually comes from, I think it's Mike Krzyzewski, like the Duke basketball coach, right? Where it's like, yo, just focus on the next play after you've like finished this play. I've also heard another version of that Michael Jordan used, which dude, we could have a whole podcast about this. It's called Next Play Speed, which is like...
I watched that video. I think you tweeted it or something. Dude, that shit's good.
Dude, it's like if there's ever any moment where... I think Robbie's really good about this shit too, like just sports psychology, which is like, if you're ever for a second just kind of like, yo, what am I doing right now? Like feeling anxious or like, oh man, it's like so late in the day, I haven't gotten any shit done. Like any of that kind of stuff. It's just one thing you need to think about. It's like next play speed. The previous plays literally don't matter. Like all that matters is like the ball's in your head right now. And that's it. Like, dude, my favorite examples are like fucking like Steph Curry goes, I think he went from like, he like went 0 for 10. Like literally missed 10 threes. And then the next game he like set the record for threes. And that's just like an example of like, oh, the previous game or like how you performed the previous play, like does not matter as long as you just focus on the now. It's like mindfulness, it's presence. Like it's so dope, dude. Like for listeners or whoever, just if you dive into like Phil Jackson's sports psychology, there's like so much stuff about this, right? Anyway, so that's next play speed. But what next play is about is that like they understand at LinkedIn that you're going to move on. And it's kind of like by openly talking about it, And also taking into account the fact that, like, dude, LinkedIn is a company where the mission is to help people find jobs, right? Like, we know what's going on. It's like people move jobs all the time. Like, we have the data on that. And so if you put that up front, like, yo, we know you're going to do that, it like kind of encourages people to be more open about it, which actually helps a ton with like teams, because then you're going to be more open about it with your manager. You're going to bring stuff up earlier. Like, I gave a lot of heads up, kind of for the same reason. And dude, on top of that, what's dope is that we have this thing called boomerangs. It's people who leave and then come back like years later. And we have tons of those. So I think it's like a proven culture piece that, like, if you talk openly about and acknowledging the fact that people move on, then it's just going to foster like a better culture of collaboration and like teams and things like that. Yeah.
I love that, because instead of fighting the trend of like people work at one place for less and less time, it's like, hey, embrace it. Like, hey, while you're here, let's fucking crush it. Let's build whatever skills you think are valuable in the process, and then we'll help you, whatever you want to do. Maybe you boomerang back and help us crush it a couple years down the line, whatever it is. Like, maybe you'll go back. Who knows? But that's so cool. It's interesting looking at different approaches. Like, I know I've been looking at Netflix stuff where they got this crazy, I'm sure but like,
their shit is dope too. Yeah.
Are you valuable to us? If not, kind of, we'll pay you this much or cut you. And then that's how it is.
I know someone who worked at Netflix, and that is what happened. And there was no hard feelings. It was literally like, oh, you guys said that up front, and I made bank, did a lot of dope work, and now I'm not working there. Cool. Like, that's just, it's just something about defining culture. Because, dude, it's humans at the end of the day. It's all people. It's all people who write this stuff. It's all people who think about this stuff and then put it in paper and all that stuff. So it's like, it is telling of how you want others to act around you. It's cool. It's cool that these companies have that.
I think at the end of the day, and this always comes up, but like, just having the expectations, like when people walk through the door, what do they expect of the company? And then just let's rally behind that. I think that's really cool. And that's what you get with a bigger company that's had years and a lot of dollars going into how do we make this great, versus like a startup that's just winging it day by day. So,
I mean, and dude, like, I came from startups, right? So one sec. Let me grab one sec.
Yeah.
Damn, I didn't realize how much water I'd need for talking.
I thought you were going to come back with like a guitar and play me a song or some shit.
Nah, dude, not yet.
I'm joking.
But I mean, like, I worked at startups before that, and part of the reason I wanted to work at a big company was because I could tell I was picking up bad habits here and there. Because when you don't have certain things set up, and like you don't have certain like practices or like culture set up, it's easy to just like wing it, as you mentioned. And then when you wing shit, like, okay, so like, let's say you wing a test, right? And then you pass, but like you don't know if you actually passed because you got shit right. Like, you winged it, right? And then there's like this negative feedback loop, and it's like, oh, I can just keep winging it. And like, it's basically like, there's versions of this. I think Peter Principle is one, but it's like, you're like successful until you're not, like you just keep winging it. And then at some point it doesn't work, and then you're fucked. I'm not saying that that's what it was like working at startups, but like, I think that's why companies develop culture. And that's why I think it's so dope when these giant companies develop cultures that sustain like these huge companies running, which is, it's crazy.
I know. That's why I'm starting to change the tagline of this podcast, because I'm like, I kind of want to learn from some big guys too, some big dogs who have some interesting approaches that, the wingers of the world. I don't know if you can call us wingers. It's kind of a cool term.
Yeah. I mean, let me just say, I love where the creator economy is going. I'm so hype about it. I mean, that's kind of why I'm like delving into it right now a little bit. I love Gen Z. I love just how talented the generation is. I love just how skilled they are. I love how like creative they are, right? So I totally get why you would want to focus on that. But yeah, as you mentioned, it's good to just get different perspectives for sure.
Got to get the balance okay, so you're kind of creating right now, and I don't know if did we fully answer Robbie's question with okay.
We did not. All right.
Where do you stand right now?
Yeah, so here's what it is. The reason why I'm not going all in right now is for the following reasons. So number one, and Robbie, if you're listening, this is for you. Number one was, as I mentioned, I almost intentionally didn't want to have goals and deliverables because that's what I do every day as a product manager. Literally every second of being a product manager, quite literally actually, is about getting a goal completed and like doing it and optimizing it and all that stuff, right? So it's kind of like doing that all day, day in and day out. To have a moment where I don't do that was just so like the idea of that was amazing, right? So that's number one. So like it's almost like an aversion to trying to build something huge with milestones and like OKRs and all that stuff, right? Because it's like we can do that, but like I don't want to do that right now. That's number one. Number two is that I'm actually going to start a temp gig as of yesterday. I got news about this, where I'm going to be helping work on a project that is related to the election. So it's like political tech. Yeah. So I had that kind of like on the side discussions happening. And it just went through. So I'll be working on that on like a more like full-time basis before like a short period of time. So that was part of it too, where I'm like, if this thing happens, then I'm going to commit to that and then come back to the creator stuff. So yeah, that's actually probably the biggest secondary reason after the first one.
All right. So I think that should make him so it's definitely when you have the skills, like, you can do it once you want to, but you needed kind of the break, ease off the gas for a little bit. But now you're kind of, jumping back into some more stuff, but
yeah, exactly.
Not for yourself yet.
Right. It's like, we talked a lot about the politics stuff that I was part of years ago, right? This is actually the first time where there's been an opportunity to work on tech products as a product manager it's political tech, as they call it. It's like tools that will help with like ballots and counting ballots. I mean, as you know, like right now it's pretty crazy. So they're like spinning up a team to work on products that will help with all that stuff. That's going to happen in like the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. I've been someone, and anyone listening to the podcast knows people get their say daily or even like minute by minute news. I get mine once a month. So I just try and stay out of it. Like my knowledge of what's going on is just like, oh my God, all of my friends summarize it basically, or just,
it's a lot of noise, dude. There's so much noise right now. Like,
so with, what I'm curious, cause this is one that's obviously connected us to, but in terms of networking in general, LinkedIn is literally networking, but it always felt to me, and I think you even said this somewhere, but like it felt almost transactional or superficial with like, oh, connect. I kind of saw this kid once, and then you later down the line, you're like, oh, maybe there's something valuable there and we can kind of exchange or whatever. But your whole approach, and goddamn, I love your newsletter so much.
Oh, nice. Thanks, dude.
It's definitely my top 3 now. It's
oh shit, I was damn, like, bro. I gotta appreciate it.
It's fucking go. We have the links and show notes and everything, so anyone that wants to subscribe, they'll fucking jump all over it. But you talk about I think you call it the servant networking, or like basically, like doing it as a service, like just putting your value out there, and then kind of flipping the script, like people will find you and changing that, reversing the way it normally goes for networking.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I'll speak a little bit about that. So
There
it's,
was no
yeah.
question there,
Yeah.
but
I was like,
it is interesting.
is this a podcast or is this like a profile? Just kidding. Yeah. No, yeah, like, so there's this term called servant leadership that's pretty popular right now, and it's like talked about a lot. I think I mentioned in the article, there's like, Kobe Bryant was asked, he was like, yo, what's your best leadership advice? And it's serve, don't lead. Like, that's it. And, there's like Harvard Business School articles written about servant leadership. Like, there's a book, all this stuff, right? So you can dig into it. Readers should definitely dig into it. But it's basically like taking that spirit and like applying it to networking. And it is definitely by no means an original thought. It is like, it like basically is incorporating all the stuff I've seen with Jack Butcher's stuff, as I mentioned in the article, like rite of passage stuff, which is like, if you write something and put it on the internet, people can find you, right? And so it's just kind of like a next iteration of that, which is that, all right, so we have the internet, we have the ability to like reach out to anybody, we have all these tools for creation. Like, why are we talking about networking when you can literally just like send someone something that you made for them, or like you saw some gap, right? Like, I think one of the examples I put in there was like some designer reached out to some other lead design guy. He just like made this thing, like he made an icon or something. And I think the follow up to that was like, oh, we're definitely going to like look into hiring this guy. Yeah. And so I think that's just the spirit of it. And I think one of the key parts of it is like, you like legit should not be thinking, you like legitimately, genuinely, it doesn't work if this doesn't happen. You genuinely need to not expect anything, because the second you do it, they can smell, like people can smell that shit. Like people are smart. And the best way to go about doing that in a genuine way, in my opinion, is to be selfish, which is that like, yo, if I do this exercise, I get to learn how to do this shit. And like, you just like learn a new skill while you're doing it. And then, yeah, you send it to the person and like, you're like, hey, like I wrote this write up of you or whatever, but it's like, you got to do the building on your own. And like, that's the prize, like that's your reward for yourself. And I think there's something special about like creating something like with a genuine intent, and then like it happens to allow you to network, right? Versus the other way around, which is like, okay, we're going to connect. How can I get something out of this? It's like, like there's this very like intentional, like, what do I get out of this piece? But instead of doing that, like, yeah, make something for yourself and like, yeah.
Well, because I think one of the first exposures I had to your content was you took Robbie. He had like something about the best way. Fuck, what is it? It's like listening is basically like telling the other person. What is it?
All right, yeah, it goes. When you're listening, you're speaking. What you're saying is you matter.
Mm. So you drawing that cartoon, is that for you internally just solidifying the idea because it's so important, or what value do you get?
That's it. Like, dude, the fact that I could remember that is only,
and I can't.
It's literally only because I literally wrote it out while I was drawing it. So it's just like, and then I got to like sketch, and that took like 10 minutes, and so it was like an opportunity for me to do a rep, right? It was an opportunity for me to like flex creative muscles for myself. And I just happened to put it on Twitter, right? Actually, a better example of this, dude, is like I did it for Jack, like Jack Butcher stuff. And that guy, dude, Jack Butcher's so dope, man. Like he's the G, like he's the GOAT with all this shit, right? He's like the godfather. And like, he's just so supportive of people. He's so supportive of like creative endeavors and pursuits. So shout out to Jack for sure. And like, I did something like that for Jack because I was like, dude, I just want to see what I could come up with, right? And then he retweeted it, and then, dude, he literally like accounts for half my followers because of his retweets. So yeah, it was just like, if he didn't retweet it, I wouldn't have cared at all. It's like, I got to do that for myself, and like I actually learned new things as I was doing it. I was like, oh, I shouldn't space out, like basically like you can space out objects in your drawings without lines. Like I didn't know that until I did it. It's like a
Well,
yeah,
I see your bodies aren't connected to the heads, and that, or
yeah,
at least on a couple that I saw, and I'm like, oh, fucking love that, Andrew. That's dope.
yeah,
Because I was just following like I kind of sketch drawing, and I have a blog post with some like Wait But Why stuff, but it's literally just me copying him until I kind of find my own
sure,
style.
yeah, yeah,
But I I think it's so cool when you can explore, and then obviously you're learning something by
yeah.
creating.
Like,
And then
dude, by doing that and like you're basically doing reps. Like I'm refining those characters. So like imagine if you did that, right? Like what if you created one of your illustrations for someone just out of the blue? Like you would learn something by doing that illustration in those 20 minutes for sure. Like you definitely would.
yeah, I've been struggling because right now, like we'll take the podcast and I'll make a little Twitter thread out of it.
Hmm.
But goddamn, I just hate writing so much. Maybe I'm just lazy and I'm not like internalizing the value that I get from synthesizing a
Oh,
conversation.
yo, let's talk about that real quick because I fuck with that, like that topic. Because I mean, I hated writing too for the longest time, and I think Steph's stuff has just solidified so clearly that it's like writing is straight up thinking. Like by writing it, you actually understand it. You know, there's that piece, and then there's also the writing is therapeutic piece, which is like just by the act of writing it out, you get to like relieve tensions in your mind. And to me, I'm like, yo, those two things alone, I'm in. Like I'm bought. I'm bought in. I'm gonna be a writer for life.
God, that's why I wish I didn't waste Steph's time talking about her chess upbringing. Not waste her time, but like we should have gotten into a lot of these cool topics, and so
Oh,
that's why
dude.
there's
Yeah,
so much there. I'm gonna have her on again. I told her I'm like I owe you another podcast just to get
yeah,
into
man.
this stuff. But I think that reframe, or not even a reframe, just like appreciation or whatever. I didn't have like my whole mentality was the fucked up one of like, oh, I want to do this so this person shares it versus
Sure.
we had a great
Yeah.
conversation. Now let me take Andrew's thoughts and just kind of
Yeah.
help myself mentally internalize all of this.
Yeah.
I think if anything, you just made me realize like, oh shit, this is for
Yeah.
me more than anyone else. It's selfish, like you
Dude,
said.
bro. Like, and it actually, like, just to loop it all the way back home, man.
Yeah.
All like to the beginning, dude. This comes from like learning music and like learning art. Like, this is stuff my parents told me. They were like this is you, like this is yours. Like whatever piece you're playing, whatever like new like you know violin like bow angle or like piano piece, like it's yours. You own it now. Like you learned a piece, like you spent the afternoon learning it, like it's yours and no one can take that from you. And I think just like doing stuff for yourself for like the genuine purpose of like learning it and like I think the word is genuine. It's just like that authentic like intention of doing it for the sake of the thing. It will just happen to like all these other things will happen, you know, like secondary effects. Like people know when you're doing something for like yeah, like some intentional like, oh, I want to like reach out to this person versus like if you're doing it for like purely the thing itself. And dude, I mean straight up, like I'm not saying that every single thing I do is like this pure genuine whatever, right? It's not, like definitely not, right? But if you at least go in with that mindset, you can't lose. Like, dude, no matter what the fuck happens, you got to like learn this thing and you got to like draw that thing. You got to like have that skill now. And like, no one's going to take that away from you, period.
My question, and goddamn, that was such a good way to connect everything together. So I was tempted that we just stop there. But real quick, with the idea of like finding what it is for you that gets the value. Like, for example, sometimes you draw, maybe sometimes you'll write a little
Mm-hmm.
bit, but like
Yeah.
how do people find what works best for them, or like
Yeah.
what they should be thinking? Maybe it's just a stupid question, but like
No,
I'm
it's a good
struggling to
question.
find it myself of like, do I want to
Yeah.
sketch? Does that get the value for me, or is it writing it out?
Yeah.
I don't know how to find that.
No, it's a really good question, dude. I mean, I still have that when I draw. Like, I'm still like, oh, is this a waste of time? Right. Like, I only have been able to exercise these muscles right now because I'm not working. I'm being straight up. Like, I'm only able to like articulate these thoughts because I'm not clocking in right now. Right. So to answer your question, I'm not going to cop out and say like, oh, you just got to follow your passions, because I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true at all, dude. If that were the case, I think I would have been a musician, honestly. I think it has to be an intersection. Like, the reason I got into tech is because learned the craft of tech, like whether it be coding, right, and like business, is because of the value I see that it provides in the world. So to answer your question, I think it's like the thing that you should spend time on. Like, how did you phrase it? You're like, what's the thing that I should do?
I guess, how do you find what's valuable to you? And I guess also the world and kind of how you're directing this.
Well, dude, okay, this is great. So for me, my model is like, where is the intersection of like the thing I love and then the thing that's going to like help out the world, right? I mean, everyone knows the Ikigai thing at this point, right? Mm-hmm. The like Venn diagram of like all that stuff. But for me, it's like I definitely lean more towards like what is fulfilling for me and also delivers value in the world. But then if you look at someone who's like, I mean, bro, like Kanye West, dude, like a purely creative person, their true meaning comes from being able to like exercise their creativity as much as possible. And to me, that's not it. That also answers Robbie's question a little bit. It's like, that's not going to do it for me. And so I think the short answer is like, you just got to do as many reps as possible to figure out what hits for you. And like, it's intuition, right? Like, when you're doing it, you're like, oh shit, this is it, right? So it's just reps, man.
That's kind of like this podcast. I just realized this is the shit. Like, you and I never would have talked to Andrew, and now it's like,
you're
fuck this
it.
Conversation, an hour and a half. I want to fucking talk for 10 hours. I want to have almost, I'm not as close to the other guys, but like have everyone on a podcast just riffing on like shit would be cool.
So first of all, man, mad props to you. I think we have like 3 minutes left here, right?
Yeah, I mean, whatever's good, but yeah.
I have a hard stop at 2:30, but I do want to say that like what you're doing right now is dope, dude. Like, this is like, as you mentioned, I mean, that's part of why I came on the podcast, man. I was like, yeah, this guy looks kind of lame, but I'm just kidding. Now I was like, dude, I like that you reached out. I like that you have this thing put together, and I respect that. And like, almost for that alone, I was like, dude, I'm down, right? And so like, you're crushing it, and like, if you just do these for the intent of like being able to talk to people, it will grow. Like, you don't even need to think about growing. You know what I mean? Like, it'll just be secondary if the like conversations are authentic and like real. It'll just happen. But you're crushing it.
I appreciate it, Andrew. This is a blast. Who knows? Maybe we'll have a part 2 someday, and we'll just riff on some more stuff. But thanks, my man. I appreciate it.